Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Tuesday, February 17, 2026.
It is.
And have you been paying any attention at all to the cultural currents over, say, the last 6 months? Specifically in those corners of the internet where finance and health and, well, what you might call biological strategy all kind of intersect.
Yeah, that intersection. It's getting very interesting.
It really is. You can feel that the ground is shifting. We seem to be finally moving past the loud, angry, really polarizing debates of the early 2020s.
Thank goodness for that.
We're moving out of that noise phase, as I like to call it, and into something, well, something much more interesting, something far more precise.
It feels like a shift from noise to signal, really. And, I mean, frankly, for anyone who's been paying attention to the deeper currents in men's health and performance, it is about time.
It is.
We're kind of done with the shouting. Now we want the mechanics. We want to know how the engine actually works under the hood.
Exactly. How does it work? And so today, we're going to dedicate the entire hour to a really comprehensive analysis of a framework that's been making some serious waves.
But quietly.
Quietly, yes. In these sort of high-level circles since late last year, we are talking about the sovereign man method.
Right.
Now, for those of you who've been with us for a while, or maybe you just obsessively follow the financial markets, the name behind this whole project might ring a bell: Osher.
And this is where the story gets fascinating right out of the gate, because you really cannot understand this new method, this new framework, without understanding where it came from.
The origin story is key.
It is. This isn't, some fitness influencer who decided to sell a generic PDF on how to get abs because he ran out of content ideas.
Right.
This is born from nearly a decade of high-level, high-stakes observation.
So let's set the stage properly, because the context is absolutely everything here. From 2017 all the way up through October of 2025, Osher was the architect behind the AstroFinance method.
A big name in that space.
He wasn't just dabbling. I mean, he was actively guiding thousands of people. We're talking serious investors, day traders, high net worth individuals through some extremely volatile market cycles.
This was the real deal. It was all about macro timing, liquidity cycles, the psychological phases of the market, timing the top, trying to time the bottom.
It was all about this concept of capital sovereignty.
Yes.
The central question of his work for all those years was, essentially, how do you protect and grow your wealth when the world feels chaotic? How do you hold your ground when the market is actively trying to liquidate you?
And he was known for doing it with a remarkable level of precision. But then something happened.
Yes, in October 2025, so just a few months ago, there was a pivot, and I mean a massive pivot. And I think the lazy interpretation, the one you see on social media, on Twitter threads.
Oh, yeah, the hot takes.
The hot takes. It's
Yeah.
just, oh, he left astrology or he got bored in the markets. But that isn't really what happened at all, is it?
No, and if you see it that way, you miss the entire point of a new methodology. I think the most accurate way to frame it, and this comes directly from the foundational documents, the manifesto we've been reviewing all week.
The source material.
The source material itself. It's this one line. After mastering cycles in markets, he began studying cycles in men.
I love that line. It just hits so hard.
Yeah.
After mastering cycles in markets, he began studying cycles in men.
It reframes everything. It wasn't an abandonment of his previous work. It was a maturation of it. It was an expansion.
A deepening.
A deepening, exactly. He didn't suddenly stop caring about sovereignty. He just came to the realization that financial sovereignty, that thing everyone was chasing, the very thing he was helping them achieve, is, well, it's incomplete.
It's a three-legged table.
It's a three-legged table, and one of the legs is missing.
Which brings us directly to the core problem. The observation that really sparked this whole thing and why we're doing this deep dive today, between 2017 and 2025, while Osher is guiding all these men to financial success, he starts to notice a pattern in the background.
A really disturbing pattern.
What was it?
It's the great paradox of the modern high performer. He looked at his client base men who were, by any objective measure, winning the game of capitalism.
Making money. Portfolios were green.
Exactly. They were gaining financial awareness. They were securing their capital sovereignty. They were hitting all their targets. But biologically, they were losing coherence.
Losing coherence. That is a heavy phrase. It sounds so systemic.
It's the only way to describe it, because you have a man who can navigate a complex derivatives market, who understands implied volatility and liquidity crunches.
All this high-level cognitive stuff.
Right. But he can't regulate his own nervous system. He can't sleep through the night. You have a man with millions of dollars in liquid assets, but zero actual vitality.
This is the concept of wealth without vitality.
That's the core of it. And the central thesis, the absolute foundation of the sovereign man method, is that wealth without vitality eventually, inevitably, leads to collapse.
It's like building a skyscraper on a sinkhole.
Perfect analogy.
The higher and more impressive you build that financial structure, the more pressure you're putting on a biological foundation that is already crumbling beneath you.
Precisely. And at the end of the day, gravity always wins, physics wins. You see it constantly. The burnout, the sudden health crisis at 45, the divorce because the guy is just a ghost walking through his own house.
He's checked out.
He's completely checked out. You cannot cheat physiology no matter how much money you have.
Okay, so the mission of this new method, and this is what we're going to unpack for the next hour, it's not about going back to the Stone Age. I really want to be clear about that right up front.
Yeah, that's a key point.
This is not an anti-modernity message. We are not telling you to go live in a cave and start eating raw liver.
Which is a relief, because I personally enjoy my Wi-Fi and my air conditioning.
Yeah, we all do. The point is this. The sovereign man method is not anti-modernity. It is anti-sedation.
Anti-sedation.
It's about building a structure where biology, capital, sexual polarity, and nervous system sovereignty are all integrated. They all work together. It's a fundamental move away from being sedated by the modern world to being regulated within it.
That is the key distinction. Sedation versus regulation. Are you numbing out or are you in control?
So just to set expectations for everyone listening, there's going to be no manosphere rage today.
Absolutely none.
No conspiracy theories about, how the water is turning the frogs gay.
No, we're going to stick to physiology and strategy.
Good.
Look, we have a stack of sources in front of us. Clinical reports on global men's health, data on testosterone decline, studies on sleep, on metabolic function. We're going to be measured, certain, and analytical.
We're treating the male body like a distressed asset that needs a turnaround strategy.
That's it. We're the restructuring consultants for the male biological system.
All right, let's get into the weeds then. Part 1, the diagnosis. We have to start with the elephant in the room.
You have to.
It's the topic that dominates every men's health podcast, every YouTube channel, the testosterone decline. You hear it everywhere. T levels are plummeting. Men are becoming weaker. So is it true, or is it just internet hype designed to sell you supplements?
It is true, but, and this is a very important but, it requires a specific kind of nuance that almost always gets lost in the headlines.
Okay.
If you look at the Global Men's Health and Declining Testosterone report we have right here, the data is, well, it's compelling.
Yeah.
What we're seeing isn't just a decline because men are getting older. Everyone knows that happens.
Right, that's just part of aging.
We're seeing what's called a secular decline or an age-independent decline.
Okay, break that down for us. What does age-independent mean in this specific context? Because, like you said, obviously a guy at 70 is going to have less testosterone than he did at 20. That's just nature.
Right, and that's called longitudinal aging. But age-independent or secular means if you take a random 50-year-old man from, say, the year 1988,
Okay.
and you compare his testosterone levels to a random 50-year-old man from today, from 2026, the man from 2026 has significantly lower levels, even at the exact same age.
How much low? Are we talking about a rounding error, or is this something we should actually be concerned about?
The estimates vary a bit, depending on the specific study and the region of the world, but some of the major cohorts show a decline of about 1% per year after you adjust for age and other health factors.
Right, 1% per year.
Roughly, yes. And look, I know 1% sounds small, it sounds insignificant.
It does.
But do the math. Compound that over 30 or 40 years. That is a massive shift in the biological baseline for the entire population.
Yeah.
We are living in a completely different hormonal reality than our grandfathers did.
That is genuinely startling. But, and here's where the expert's take is so important, we have to be really careful not to just fixate on that number, on the testosterone level itself, right?
Right.
Because a number is just a readout. It's a symptom.
Exactly, thank you. The number is a signal, it's not the root cause. The report emphasizes this over and over. This isn't some mysterious global virus that's attacking men's testicles.
Right.
It is a direct result of the biobehavioral environment.
The environment that we built for ourselves, the modern world.
Correct. We have, over the last 50 years, created the perfect storm for what is clinically called functional hypogonadism.
Functional hypogonadism. Okay, define that for the listener who, like me, did not go to med school.
So you have two main types. Organic hypogonadism is when your hardware is actually broken. Your testicles, your pituitary gland, something is physically damaged and cannot produce the hormone. That's a clear medical disease.
Got it. Hardware failure.
But functional means your hardware is perfectly fine. The factory is capable of production. But the software, your body's operating system, is choosing not to run the testosterone program because of the signals it's receiving from the environment.
It's like the body is voluntarily going into power-saving mode.
That is a perfect analogy. It is an energy regulation decision. If you are chronically stressed, sleep-deprived, inflamed from a diet of ultra-processed food, and you're sedentary, your body looks at its internal balance sheet and says, okay, we are under siege.
Red alert.
Red alert. Now is not the time to be building muscle, chasing mates, and taking risks. Now is the time to survive. The body intelligently shuts down expensive long-term projects like reproduction and vitality to conserve energy for what it perceives as an immediate crisis.
Which connects directly to this massive shift we've seen in how we work, the very nature of labor.
Absolutely. Think about the typical listener of this deep dive. They probably work in tech, finance, consulting, management.
Knowledge work.
Knowledge work. The source material highlights this massive, dramatic decline in occupational physical activity over the last half-century. We have transitioned from a calorie-burning, movement-based economy to a sedentary, cognitive load economy.
And this is where Osher's observation about his own clients comes right back into focus. The men with the most financial sovereignty, the high earners, are often the most sedentary people on the planet.
It's the great decoupling of wealth and biological power. In the past, broadly speaking, labor required vitality. To be a successful farmer or a blacksmith or a builder, you had to be physically robust.
Your body was your primary tool?
It was your primary asset. Now, the accumulation of capital often comes at the direct cost of vitality. You sit in a chair, you stare at a screen, you generate wealth, but your body is stagnating. You are literally trading your spine for your spreadsheet.
There's a term in the notes here that really stood out to me. The 50s cohort. Can we talk about that? Because I think a lot of our listeners are either in that bracket or they're approaching it, and this framing just explains so much.
This is a critical demographic insight. It's so important. The report points out that a man who is in his 50s right now, so born in the mid-1970s, has a fundamentally different exposure history than a man who was 50 in the 1980s.
How so? Walk us through that timeline. What's different?
Just think about it. If you're 50 today, you spent your 20s and 30s, your prime hormonal years, during the rise of the internet. You were the first generation to carry a smartphone in your pocket from dawn till dusk.
Why?
You saw the absolute explosion of ultra-processed foods in the 90s. You lived through the cultural normalization of sleep deprivation as a hustle metric during the dot-com and startup booms of the early 2000s.
So you were basically the guinea pig generation for the modern lifestyle.
Exactly. You have been exposed to digital sedation and a flood of endocrine disruptors for the majority of your adult life. Now, compare that to the cohort from the 80s, a guy who was 50 in 1985. He grew up in the 40s and 50s.
Totally different world.
He ate real butter. He played outside. He didn't have a screen tethered to his dopamine receptors 24/7. His entire biological baseline was forged in a different world with different inputs.
So the narrative that modern men are just softer or weaker in character is really missing the point.
It's a complete misdiagnosis. It's that the biological inputs, the raw materials we're building our bodies with, have radically changed.
You're not playing the same game your grandfather played.
Not at all. You are playing on hard mode hormonally from day one.
That is a perfect transition to part two, the mechanisms. We've established what is happening, vitality is dropping, but now we need to understand how. Why is it leaking out? Because it's not magic, it's mechanics. And according to all the sources, the single biggest driver is metabolic.
Obesity and metabolic syndrome. And to be even more specific, visceral adiposity.
Belly fat.
Belly fat. The hard internal fat.
We all know belly fat is bad. I mean, doctors have been telling us to lose weight for decades. But from a sovereign man perspective, why is it the primary enemy? Why is the gut the main antagonist in this hormonal story?
Because we have to stop thinking of fat as just this, inert blob of stored energy. That's old science.
It's not just a storage unit.
Not at all. The new understanding, which is crystal clear, is that visceral fat, the hard fat that's packed in around your organs, is an active endocrine organ. It is biologically active tissue.
So it's doing stuff. It's producing things.
It's doing terrible stuff. It's pumping out inflammatory cytokines, which is why your joints hurt and your brain feels foggy. But here is the absolute kicker for men. Visceral fat contains a high concentration of an enzyme called aromatase.
Aromatase. That definitely sounds like something you want to avoid. What does it do?
It's a conversion factory. It literally takes your testosterone molecules, your primary masculine hormone, and through a chemical process, it converts them into estrogen, specifically estradiol.
Wow. So let me get this straight. If you are carrying significant belly fat, you are essentially carrying around a biological machine inside your own body that is actively taking your masculine hormone and flipping it into the primary feminine hormone.
That is the precise biological reality. You are, in a very real sense, chemically castrating yourself through adiposity. And this drives a nasty, vicious feedback loop.
Also,
Well, lower testosterone makes it harder to burn fat and build muscle, which of course leads to more fat accumulation, which leads to more aromatase enzyme, which leads to even lower testosterone. It's a downward spiral.
that explains so much. It explains why just working out sometimes doesn't fix the problem if the metabolic dysfunction is deep enough. You're fighting against your own chemistry.
You're fighting a powerful current, and the data shows this is a growing problem. The number of people with insufficient physical activity has risen globally from about 23% in 2000 to over 31% in 2022.
That's a huge portion of the population.
It is. We are moving less, eating worse, and getting fatter. And that fat is actively, relentlessly suppressing our hormonal sovereignty.
Okay, let's move to the next mechanism, because
Yeah.
this one hits home for me, and I know it hits home for the high performers listening, the nervous system and sleep.
This is completely non-negotiable. If we look at the experimental evidence that's cited in the report, it's stark. It completely destroys the whole "I'll sleep when I'm dead" ethos.
So what was the study? What did they do?
They took a group of healthy young men, we're talking guys in their absolute prime, and they restricted their sleep to about 5 hours a night for 1 week.
Which, let's be totally honest, is a normal week for a lot of guys in crunch mode at work.
Yeah.
You know, I can get by in 5 hours, I've got coffee.
Right. It's almost a badge of honor in some circles. And after just one single week of this sleep restriction, their daytime testosterone levels drop by 10 to 15%.
In 1 week.
1 week. Now, to put that in context for you, remember how we said testosterone naturally drops about 1% a year as you age? That means a 10 to 15% drop is the hormonal equivalent of aging an entire decade.
That is terrifying.
Hormonally speaking, you aged 10 years and 7 days just by cutting your sleep short. You literally fast-forwarded your own biological decline.
That completely reframes the whole idea of hustle.
Yeah.
You think you're getting ahead by working those extra 3 hours, but you're actually declaring biological bankruptcy.
It exposes sleep deprivation for what it is: strategic suicide. You simply cannot have biological authority if you are in a chronic sleep debt cycle. You are running your system in sympathetic overdrive.
Fight or flight.
The tiger is chasing you 24/7. Your body thinks it is under constant mortal threat.
And when you're under threat,
You do not invest in long-term projects like vitality. You invest in immediate survival. And the hormone for that is cortisol.
right, the stress hormone.
And cortisol and testosterone have a famously inverse relationship. It's a seesaw. When one goes up, the other tends to go down. They are antagonistic.
So Osher's focus on nervous system sovereignty isn't some, woo-woo spiritual concept. It's a direct hormonal intervention.
It's pure physiology. You can take all the expensive supplements you want, you can lift all the weights in the world, but if your nervous system is stuck in sympathetic dominance because you are not sleeping, you are fighting a losing battle, the chemistry simply will not work in your favor.
Let's touch on something else, the invisible load, the toxins. The source material talks about endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, things like PFAS, phthalates, bisphenols.
We have to address this, but we have to do it without putting on a tinfoil hat.
Right. Keep it grounded.
This isn't about paranoia. It's about environmental reality. These chemicals are, for better or worse, ubiquitous in modern life. They're in plastics, nonstick cookware, some water supplies, food packaging.
And what do they actually do to the male system?
The science is becoming increasingly clear that many of these compounds can act as xenoestrogens or as androgen blockers.
What does that mean?
Basically, they either mimic estrogen in the body, fooling your cells, or they jam the locks, the androgen receptors, so your real testosterone key can't fit and do its job.
So even if your body manages to produce the testosterone, these environmental chemicals can prevent it from actually working.
In some cases, yes, it adds noise to the hormonal signal. Now look, we can't live in a bubble. It's impossible to avoid them all. But acknowledging this invisible load helps explain why even some guys who seem healthy are still struggling.
It's another straw on the camel's back.
Exactly. But frankly, the bigger straw, the one we have much more direct control over, is what the method calls sedation culture.
Sedation culture. This is a core pillar of the diagnosis, right? The phrase, the sovereign man method, is anti-sedation. Explain the psychology of that. What is sedation in this context?
Think about the average modern man's day, especially a high performer. He wakes up, he's already tired, so caffeine to spike the system up.
An upper.
Right. Then he works, he's stressed. At lunch, he grabs sugar or an ultra-processed meal for a quick energy spike and a moment of comfort.
Another upper followed by a crash.
Then he comes home, he's mentally exhausted, maybe he has a couple of drinks, alcohol to wind down, a downer, and then before bed, it's pornography or doom scrolling for a cheap dopamine hit to numb out.
It's a constant cycle of uppers and downers. It's like pharmacological management of your own day.
It is a cycle of artificial regulation. We are using external substances and superstimuli to manage our internal state because we have lost the ability to regulate it endogenously from within.
Let's talk about the food aspect of that sedation first. We mentioned UPFs, ultra-processed foods.
UPFs are not just empty calories. I think that's way too gentle of a term. They are chemically engineered to bypass your natural satiety mechanisms. They are hyperpalatable.
Designed to make you overeat.
Precisely. And the source material frames them very accurately, I think, as sedation mechanisms. When you eat a heavy, processed, high-carb meal, you are literally sedating your nervous system. You get that food coma, the itis. You are blunting the sharp edge of reality and stress.
And then there's the digital aspect. Pornography. The source material here has a pretty nuanced take, doesn't it? It's not just the old-school, simple, porn causes ED argument.
No, it's more sophisticated than that. It's complicated. The hard data on whether porn physically causes erectile dysfunction is, well, it's mixed. Some studies show a link, some say it's just correlational.
So what's the sovereign man lens on it?
The framework looks at it primarily through the lens of opportunity cost and dopamine dysregulation.
So it's not a moral argument, it's an economic one.
Yeah.
An energy argument.
Exactly. It's all about energy economics. Every hour spent in digital sedation, passively watching other people engage in the primal act of life, is an hour lost in your own physical embodied competence. It is time and energy you are not spending on real-world mating effort or building your own life.
It's a fake win that drains your real battery.
It's a fake win that costs you real-world vitality. And the prevalence of what's now called compulsive sexual behavior disorder, which the data says is around 4.9% in men.
That's nearly 1 in 20 men.
1 in 20. That's a huge signal. It tells us that for a significant minority of men, their primary sexual relationship is with a screen, not another human being.
That's a collapse of polarity.
It's a total collapse of polarity. It's a collapse of sovereignty. You become a subject to the algorithm, not a sovereign over your own biological drive.
This transitions us perfectly into part 3, the psychology of collapse. Because we can talk about hormones and sleep and food all day, but if the underlying mindset is broken, the body is just going to follow it down.
And we have to start with the lone wolf fallacy.
Oh, this is a big one. Especially for the high-achieving men listening. The whole, I can do it myself, I don't need anyone, I am the rock.
The data on this is just brutal. Social isolation and loneliness are killers. The mortality risk is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
15 cigarettes a day, wow.
But here's the key insight from the source material. Men often don't report loneliness. They don't use that word.
Right, if you ask a guy, are you lonely? He'll probably get defensive and say, no, I'm fine. I like my own company.
He'll say he's fine. But if you actually audit his emotional support ecology, who can he really talk to? Who truly has his back? Who can he be vulnerable with without being judged? For most men, it's a desert.
He has business colleagues. He has employees. Maybe he has a wife that he doesn't want to burden with all of his stress. But he has no tribe.
He has no tribe. And biologically, the primate brain perceives isolation as a mortal threat. If you are a primate alone in the jungle, you are as good as dead. So what does your body do in response to that perceived threat?
Cranks up the stress hormone.
It cranks up cortisol. It stays vigilant, on high alert, 247. And as we've established, chronic vigilance and high cortisol suppresses testosterone. You cannot be a sovereign man in a vacuum. It's a biological impossibility.
So Osher's pillar of masculine polarity and connection isn't just about dating or relationship.
No, it's much deeper. It's about having a structure of masculine support that allows the nervous system to finally downregulate and feel safe.
And this runs right into the concept of restrictive masculinity. The idea that being a man means you never show weakness, you never go to the doctor, you never admit that you're tired or struggling.
The source material calls this restrictive masculinity norms. It's essentially stoicism that curdles and becomes stupidity.
Stoicism becoming stupidity. I like that. That's very quotable.
I mean, think about it. Real stoicism is about emotional control and resilience in the face of genuine adversity. Fake stoicism is ignoring a flashing check engine light on your car's dashboard until the engine explodes on the highway.
The report highlights that these norms directly prevent men from seeking help. They won't go to the doctor for their metabolic dysfunction. They won't admit they have ED because it's embarrassing. They won't treat their sleep apnea because the CPAP mask looks unmanly.
And this is where the sovereign man counterargument completely flips the script. It says, ignoring biological signals is not a badge of honor. It is a failure of strategy.
That is the key. That reframe is everything. If you are managing a billion-dollar fund and you ignored a flashing red warning light on your Bloomberg terminal, you would be fired for gross incompetence.
Exactly. So why is it somehow manly to do that with your own body, your only true asset? True sovereignty requires structural hormonal coherence. You can't just aestheticize toughness while your biology is rotting from the inside out. That's not strength, that's just vanity.
Okay, so we have the diagnosis, wealth without vitality. We have the mechanisms, visceral fat, sleep debt, toxins, digital sedation. We have the psychology, the lone wolf trap, and restrictive norms. Now, let's get to the good part, the solution, part 4, the sovereign man method. How do we actually fix this?
The method proposes what it calls an evidence-weighted intervention map. It's a hierarchy of action. And this is crucial because most men, when they decide to fix this, they try to skip right to the end.
They want the bill. They want the testosterone injection immediately, the quick fix.
Right. They want the magic bullet. But the method is very clear. You have to earn the physiology first. You have to build the foundation before you can put up the walls.
Level 1, the metabolic foundation.
Yeah.
The absolute non-negotiables. What are we talking about here?
2 things, primarily, weight loss and waist reduction. If you have that visceral fat we spent so much time on, getting rid of it is the single most powerful lever you can pull to restore your natural testosterone production. You have to shut down the aromatase factory.
So this means cutting the calories, but more specifically, cutting out the ultra-processed foods.
The total elimination of UPFs. This does 2 things. It stops the sedation cycle we talked about, and it drastically lowers systemic inflammation. This isn't a diet in the sense of a temporary restriction. It's a permanent removal of industrial toxins from your system. It's rejecting the slop that the modern food environment tries to feed you.
Makes sense. Okay, level 2, movement is medicine. But there's an interesting distinction made here between exercise and training.
Yes, and this is a really nuanced and important point. Exercise is often viewed as a punishment for eating. You know, I ate a pizza last night, so I have to go to the gym and run it off. That's a calorie-burning debit-credit mindset.
A chore.
A chore. Training, on the other hand, is about building capacity. The sovereign man method is heavily focused on resistance training, lifting heavy things.
Why resistance training specifically over, say, marathon running?
Because muscle is the organ of longevity. Muscle tissue is your body's primary site for glucose disposal. It dramatically increases your insulin sensitivity. When you have more muscle mass, your body handles sugar and carbohydrates infinitely better.
So even if lifting weights doesn't magically double your testosterone number on a blood test overnight, it's changing the entire environment of the body to be more favorable to testosterone.
Exactly. The source notes that resistance training might not cause a massive spike in resting T for a guy who's already in the normal range, but it builds the capacity for the testosterone he does have to work effectively. It changes his body composition. It changes how he inhabits space. It signals to the body, we are strong, we are capable, we need to be anabolic and build.
And level 3, sleep as an endocrine intervention.
We have to reframe sleep. We treat it not as rest, but as a medical prescription. You don't try to get more sleep. You engineer your entire life to ensure that sleep happens, period.
It's a deliverable.
It's a non-negotiable deliverable. You block the blue light at night. You make the room cold and dark. You treat it with the same seriousness you would treat a life-saving heart medication. Because, as we saw with that 10 to 15% drop study, it is your primary hormone medication.
Now, we have to address the elephant in the solution room. TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. It is huge right now. It's everywhere. What does the sovereign man take on it?
The take is purely analytical. It's not moralistic, TRT is cheating, and it's definitely not evangelistic. Everyone should be on T. It's analytical. TRT is a tool, not a savior.
So what does the data actually say it does effectively?
The source data is very clear on this. TRT is very effective for specific things. It helps with sexual symptoms like libido and erections. It helps with anemia. It improves bone density and muscle mass. So those specific endpoints, it works very well.
There's always a but.
But it is not a cure-all for cognition or depression. The evidence there is much weaker, and it absolutely comes with significant risks that you have to take seriously.
What are the main risks?
The big ones are hematocrit issues. That's your blood getting too thick, which can increase your risk of stroke or heart attack, and fertility suppression. This is a huge one. If you inject exogenous testosterone, your body's natural feedback loop shuts down its own production, which includes sperm. If you want to have children, this is a major, major decision.
So you can't just hop on T from an online clinic and expect your entire life to be fixed.
No. And the real danger, and this is the core sovereign man warning, is using TRT to mask a broken lifestyle.
The nitrous oxide analogy from the source material.
Exactly. If you are overweight, sleep-deprived, chronically stressed, and eating garbage, and you just inject testosterone on top of that, you are essentially putting nitrous oxide in a car engine that is overheating and has no oil in it.
You might go faster for a little bit.
You'll go faster for a bit, but you are going to blow a gasket. It's an unsustainable fix that ignores the root cause.
The sovereign man context seems to be fix the fundamentals first, earn the baseline.
Earn the baseline. Use TRT for clear cases of organic failure, where the body literally cannot produce it despite your best efforts. Or use it as a carefully managed tool once the entire foundation is rock solid. And proper diagnostic confirmation is key to separate morning blood tests showing low levels, not just one diagnosis from an Instagram ad.
I want to circle back to the Osher pivot as we start to synthesize all of this idea of bridging capital and biology. Why is financial intelligence ultimately a failure without biological authority?
It comes back to that concept of the endocrine system as an energetic regulation system. Think about how Osher taught financial markets. You manage liquidity. You manage your cash flow. You don't spend more than you have. You anticipate boom and bust cycles.
You have to respect the system's rules.
You have to respect the system's rules. The body is the exact same. It's an energy economy. If you are running a massive energy deficit from no sleep, bad food, high stress, and you try to spend that energy on high cognitive performance at work, you are going into debt, biological debt.
And eventually the margin clerk comes calling.
Exactly. And the margin call is a heart attack at 52. The margin call is adrenal burnout that takes 2 years to recover from. The margin call is a divorce because you have no polarity, no presence, no energy left for your family.
Wealth without vitality leads to collapse. It's the central mantra.
It is. You can have the best, most well-managed portfolio in the world, but if your biological vessel, the ship carrying you through life, is sinking, the portfolio doesn't matter.
This is powerful stuff. It really recontextualizes the entire last decade of hustle culture. It feels like we're finally entering an era of what you might call integrated sovereignty.
I think that's exactly the right term. The next evolutionary stage for a successful man isn't just about getting rich. It's about integrating biology, capital, sexual polarity, and nervous system sovereignty. You need all 4 legs of the table to be stable.
It's the move from sedation to regulation.
That is the entire shift in a nutshell. From numbing yourself to the pressures of the world to regulating your internal system so that you can master the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the sovereign man method, we have to leave the listener with something to chew on. We've gone through the diagnosis, the mechanisms, the psychology, and the hierarchy of the solution.
I think we have to leave them with the one question that really defines this entire philosophy, the question that Osher apparently now poses to all of his clients.
Let's hear it.
You have spent years, maybe decades, mastering your career. You've mastered your portfolio. You have optimized your professional life down to the minute. But ask yourself this, honestly. If your nervous system collapsed tomorrow, if your biology filed for bankruptcy, would your capital save you? Or would it just fund your decline?
Would it just fund your decline?
Right.
That is a haunting question. It's basically paying for a nicer room in the hospital as you waste away.
It's the fundamental question that separates the merely wealthy from the truly sovereign.
And on that note, we are going to sign off. This has been a fascinating look into the pivot of Osher and the foundation of the sovereign man method. It's Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Take care of your portfolio, but for God's sake, take care of your physiology first.
Stay regulated.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.